dude, you had hundreds of guest episodes. Revolutionary You was one of my favorite podcasts, like ever.
Thank you.
You had a lot of amazing, smart people talking about their expertise in pretty much every single area of health and fitness in particular. You also talked about addiction, you talked about parenting, and you talked a lot about people's struggles and achievements and transformations. Was there ever like one thing that maybe stuck with you?
So I think the one thing that I really wanted to accomplish with the show was I always wanted there to be a very human element to it. And so I've felt that, when it comes to the relationships that we have with our clients, a client is coming to you, they're paying you for a service, they see things they believe that, that you can help them with. And I thought, well, the podcast is a way that I can set a foundation and we can talk about things that, people struggle with in the gym. We can talk about where they struggle with food. We can talk about consistency with exercise, some of the psychological struggles that people go through, that kind of thing. But in doing that, I also wanted to be pretty transparent about myself and things that I had struggled with, because I never wanted to be in that position in a coach-client relationship where, I don't know if this part will be filmed, but where I am up here and the client is down here. We are side by side. I know that other people have probably said it more eloquently than me, but I look at it as, you are the driver, the client is the driver, I'm the passenger. We're taking a journey together. And at best, I have a GPS to say, why don't we try this way or why don't we try this way? But it's collaborative. And so one of the questions that I've received sporadically throughout my career is people have seen my physical body and they've asked, Jason, have you ever needed to lose weight? No, I've never needed to lose weight. That's not been my struggle point. I've struggled with numerous other things, but food was just not one of those particular things. And so in saying that, I also have to be able to level the playing field to go, I didn't struggle with that, but I struggle with this and this and this. And if I can be transparent and humble about that, then the people that I bring on as guests, we can engage on those topics. And the listener can be a part of that process to go, we're not all that different. And I think that's one of the things that I really wanted to embrace is rather than try to find ways that we are so different, because, we might look different, we might respond to things very differently, but we're still very much fallible humans that we need some help in some regard with something. And if I can just bring all that to the forefront, then people feel, I hope, more unified and less separated, if that's maybe the best way to say that.
That's kind of what I'm trying to achieve as well. Never make it about myself, but ironically, I have to do my best to be transparent, to be vulnerable while I'm having conversations with my guests. And I'm also trying not to overshare. I'm also trying not to deviate a lot from the thread of the conversation. But what's interesting really is that so far, every single recording that I had with every single guest, literally, dude, we immediately go there into that area of transparency and people talking about their struggles rather than just talking about their achievements. And I think that there's also an aspect of me selecting who I want to showcase on my podcast, who I want to have conversations with, essentially. And that's my only standard. I want to have a conversation with you. I want to have multiple conversations with you, Jason. So why the fuck wouldn't we do this and do it probably often? Sure. And if I approach it from that standpoint, I think even though we are having a conversation that's interesting and fun for us, both you and I are professional enough to understand that the entire gist of this is to attract people who need help, who need good information, or at the very least, inform them what potentially bad information is if they want to follow not necessarily what you and I kind of went through in our own personal journeys, but just to kind of pinpoint them and guide them towards the right direction. So for me, this is a form of service, and it might appear kind of egotistical talking about myself, you talking about yourself. But then again, you've been a coach for many years. I've been a coach for many years. So we kind of know that this is not a manipulation game, but through our stories, we want to motivate people towards the right direction, which is to sign up for my coaching. Yeah, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. And look, man, speaking of coaching, you are not just an online coach. You're not even just a one-to-one coach on a gym floor. You actually own a gym, and you have quite a diverse demographic of people that you work with, that you help, that you essentially kind of mentor and coach. Is that something you planned from the get-go, to own your own gym, do the in real life coaching, do the online coaching, or did that happen kind of like haphazardly?
Yes, all the above. So I feel like I have to reference the numbers, because the numbers, as I talk about them now, I think even sort of shock me. So as of the end of last year, I don't know when this is going to be released, but as of the end of last year, I celebrated 18 years as a coach, and we're coming up on 17 years since I opened up our doors of this gym. And I knew that initially what I wanted was, I just wanted a place where people felt welcome. I want to build a place, I want to build a training environment where people feel welcome to come. And I just wanted to take anybody who came through our doors, kids, adults, elderly, men, women, whatever. Like I wanted all of it. And then as business grew, I started to find there were certain people I worked really well with, and some that maybe I wasn't the best fit for. And that's a learning process in itself. But it was one of those things that as the years have gone on, the culture has sort of become its own monster. And I don't say monster in any kind of dismissive or defamatory way. It is its own beast. And it's something that I am very proud of. It's something that I'm very open about sharing on the internet, whether it's through quotables or, just people doing amazing things that, you might look at them on the street and not realize that they can lift lots of weight. Maybe they didn't know that,
Yeah.
even know they could lift a lot of weight. But that's been the fun of it. And so it's just trying to find a place that is as warm and inviting and also very colorful, and just see what comes of it. And so, yes, it's been very haphazard, and I'm proud of it. But I'm showing 100% of my bias.
And that's the first thing that comes to mind, or the first association whenever I go through your content, which is the colorful aspect of the entire thing, and just the diversity, and the diversity that is not kind of like forced, such as in Hollywood films. You know what I mean? It's just it just happens organically. And you have that welcoming aspect that just shines through everything that you shared online. You share your clients, like, not just their training sessions, not just their performance, but you celebrate the PRs, and you also share funny ass quotes that are usually referring to you as a coach. But dude, like, that aspect of welcoming atmosphere and culture, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Patrick Humphrey about Eat, Train, Progress group on Facebook. And I asked him pretty much the same question, which is, did that culture, welcoming culture, happen organically, or were you intentionally making said culture? And he said that completely 100% happened organically. Was it the same for you?
I don't know that I can say, certainly in a face-to-face setting, that I didn't influence the culture in some way. If you were to come and visit and spend a week with us or whatever, you would certainly see aspects of how we are on the training floor. And I very well could be the person who's stirring the pot, but it might be because we're kind of busy and the music's loud and I'm dancing my skinny ass around the gym or whatever the case is. And the conversation gets colorful. You've been in a gym, and there's a lot of things that people say in a gym that if you have a slightly immature sense of humor, you can twist it to turn it into something that is juvenile, like just whatever. And so we all, men, women, whatever, well, not everybody, not everybody plays in on the joke, but a lot of people do. And so that's part of what makes it a uplifting atmosphere. And so I think one of the things that happened throughout the years is there were certain people that stayed. Like, I listened to the conversation that you had with Brianna, and she was a great guest, and I had the luxury of meeting her several years ago at a fitness summit, and she's just as genuine in person and sincere as she is online. And I remember she said something about, like, I want to give you all the tools and then basically, just let you fly. And I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
But for me, while I think there's tremendous value in being able to do that, and I hope that I've been able to do that for clients throughout the years, there's also a lot of value in knowing that, like, people keep coming back. People keep coming back because they love the culture, they love the community, they love the people that are going to see at 6 o'clock in the morning every Tuesday and Thursday. And yes, it's part Jason and Jason's coaches, but it's also, I get to see my friends. I get to see the people that are cheering me on. And,
Yeah.
I hate to say it this way, but you can't really put a price tag on that. I mean, you can, but if that's what gets your ass in the gym, then by all means come in for the community, for the support, because that's a pretty valuable thing to have that is a part of you with your journey. So as those people began to stay for 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, whatever, they become very much part of who we are and what we do. And it's not as much
Mhm.
about me. It's about the fact that hopefully I've done a good enough job as their coach. My staff has done a good enough job that they keep wanting to come back. They keep wanting to pay us their hard earned money to be a part of this family, if you will.
That was the term that crossed my mind, but the family thing has been so exaggerated and overblown and also fucking fake, just pure fake when it comes to like company settings that I just kind of oscillate away from it. But in the context of Rev Fit, your company, your gym, your culture, that's pretty much obvious. As soon as for people who don't follow Jason Leenaarts on social media, I encourage you to do so, especially coaches who want to create either online group setting or they want to create an actual like gym group setting. I think your approach is absolutely fantastic. So like we were talking about family, we're talking about creating that culture, we're talking about having people come back and create that social circle, close-knit social circle that you have succeeded with. But also, I think that's the most, how should I put this? I think that is an approach to client retention where every single day every single evening you can sleep tight knowing that you created that. Because I've been in situations where it was almost like I'm doing everything that I can just to retain a client for paying me for a few more months. And that never felt good. And now I'm in a position where I can literally, that comes with experience as well. But I'm also in a position, Jason, where if a client comes to a consultation call, I can refer them to someone else because we're not a good fit.
Sure.
Or what's happening a lot of times is I just tell my client, like, you have to do this on your own. There is no reason for you to continue paying me. I can still answer some of your questions, maybe check, maybe we can check in like once every few months or something like that if you need my help. If you need coaching for something specific, like specific performance goal, like, in powerlifting or endurance or something like that, sure, we can work on that. But right now, I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't trust yourself and do this yourself. But I have clients who have been consistently paying me for years, literally, to be some sort of a safety net.
Yes,
Be there
100%.
to be there when we need to brainstorm some shit.
Well, I would say I like having both options available because I find that in many ways you have to use slightly different skill sets. When your only touch point is to be able to like send somebody a video to give feedback on a check-in, then, you have to be able to kind of get into the weeds. To your point, you work with certain people for such an amount of time that, initially, yes, you might be talking about calories and food behaviors and relationship with food and that kind of thing. But at a certain point, you start to just learn more about who the person is in general, and you're talking more about life stuff. And I think you
Yeah.
said something really
Yes.
interesting, which was safety net. And I almost look at it as kind of like a grounding point. Like, some people might use a therapist for that. And we have to sometimes, as coaches, play a little bit of armchair therapist and also understanding when we need to refer out, because certain things are not our skill sets.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, when you work in the online world, you want to be a safe space for people to come to, because that might be the only place where they can truly just share what they need to and then go back to their normal lives. Whereas if they're here on the gym floor, they might not be comfortable talking about a lot of that stuff on the gym floor when there's 3 or 4 other people training at the same time.
Uh-huh.
They may need that privacy space. So there's certain skills that I think it takes to be successful, face to face in a brick and mortar, or if you just work with clients one on one, that it's a little bit different online. So I just like the fact that I've had the flexibility to do both. But I can't say there's necessarily a favorite, with the exception of I don't think we'll ever be able to get away from having just human touch, I think is maybe the best way that I can say that. We're in a world where everything is becoming more convenient, more automated. We don't have to be, with other people if we don't have to be. And I think that at the moment where you start to lose more personal touch, the more isolated we become. And I can't imagine that the world gets better as a result of that. So like AI is fine, convenience is fine. And also, Darko, if I knew that you lived a mile down the road, I'd want to go grab lunch. I'd want to actually
Yeah.
see you in person and not just be able to have these video conferences, because there's value in socializing and having
Yeah.
that. If you can kill, for lack of a better term, if you can kill two birds with one stone, I'm going to get a great workout in, which is going to improve so many aspects of my life. And I'm going to be around people that I really enjoy, that I get to see face to face, that if I want to give them a fucking hug, I can give them a hug and I can share something with them. I can give them a gift and that kind of thing. Like today, one of my clients came in. She's been with me for like 5 years, and she came in and she said, "Hey, here's a gift certificate for you. Here's the gift certificate for your coach." And we're like, "What's this for?" She's like, "It's just because." Oh my gosh, thank you. Like, you know, we're just doing our thing, but thank you. And gave
Yeah,
her a big
yeah.
hug. And it's like, that's a really cool way to start the week. But, it's just things like that,
Hmm.
that it's like, I hope we never get away from the ability to have that.
Yeah, and I think that ability, the human touch ability, within the next couple of years, I think that's going to be the thing that differentiates coaches like yourself and myself. I don't want to just like pat myself on the back, but I will include myself there because I do enjoy video check-ins over filling out forms and shit like that. So I do like conversations, continuous conversations with my clients. And I think that is going to be the biggest differentiator, Jason, when it comes to our business as coaches, especially. On one hand, you have AI, you have automations, and people don't need to have exact writing experience using ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever. But people are starting to pick up on it. And you just fucking feel the AI manufactured content. You just feel it. You cannot really point a finger on what it is. Is it the syntax of a sentence? Is it a word? Is it a em dash? Whatever it is, you fucking know it's fake. And what I'm noticing lately is that I started unfollowing content creators that I followed for years even, who are sitting in front of the camera and reading a ChatGPT generated script.
Right.
So this is why I believe that what you said, giving people a hug, even a proverbial hug through this sort of communication with clients.
Right.
But dude, also, when you look at what's happening with the situation with GLP-1s, you all of a sudden have a drug that, in my opinion, is pretty awesome, that changes the entire landscape of coaching.
I have continued to be fascinated by what GLP-1s are doing in the landscape. I can't even talk about them in any sense without sort of talking about, sort of how I came into working with them. So, my first shout out would be to Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, who I believe that at the time that they were coming into the market, right before the explosion of them, Spencer had a platform where he was prescribing them to patients. And there were a group of us nutrition coaches who were working underneath him. And we were like, okay, explain this to us. And Spencer probably said the simplest, but perhaps the most profound thing that he could have said, which was, and I have to paraphrase, in a perfect world, diet and exercise would be all that someone needs to get where they want to go. But we don't live in that world. And so some people need another tool. And as soon as he said that, I was like, well, that's amazing. Well, then let's get them the tool. And like any other powerful medication, are there potential side effects? Yes. Can they be quite negative? Also, yes. Can they be life-saving? Yes. There's so many things about them that I think as a coach, and I believe I can say this in good faith. I've been doing this long enough that throughout my career, if someone decided they wanted gastric bypass surgery, there was not a lot of pushback about it. Oh, you want to get gastric bypass surgery?
Yes,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Like that's great. And so they get gastric bypass. It helps them lose whatever amount that they lose. And then you are there to support that journey in every way possible. Let's help you retain your muscle. Let's help you build in healthy habits. Let's help you feel your best self. The surgery is one tool. The GLP-1s, it is a very similar conversation. And the best way that I've been able to say it, and I don't think that I swiped this from anybody else. If so, I apologize for not giving due credit. But I've continued to look at it like antidepressants. Some people need to be on an antidepressant indefinitely. There are potential side effects. You have to be aware of that with your doctor. And also, this can save your life. So why wouldn't we support it? And I understand that some coaches probably see it as a threat. Well, if somebody is using this tool and they're losing weight, well, then why did they need me? Well, they need you for a lot of things. They need you as support, as sounding board, as coach, as someone just to be there with them on the journey, because the medications can do a lot, but they can't do it all. And so I felt very good about them for the most part. But then something I wrote about recently in my blog is now we're starting to see perhaps a slightly different side of them, is that, yes, they are truly life-changing for so many people. We're also starting to see people take them too far in terms of size of the body. And this is not meant to body shame anyone. It just means that if we were to look at a spectrum of what happens to bodies on a much leaner end and a much larger end, that you do start to kind of stack the deck about disadvantages at a given weight. And it can be seen on any end of that spectrum. So it's like you want people to have the most health forward approach. And if you can be part of that conversation with them, I think that's a good thing.
That's beautiful way to put it. By the way, that's what she said. One thing, I mean, this is one of the things that I want to project through my podcasting platform, which is immature 13-year-old humor made by a 40-year-old man. When you said you don't know who you swiped the antidepressant analogy, I'm sure you didn't swipe it off me, but I've used the same analogy as well. I see it also as if we want to take the alternative analogies as well, which is like metformin, for example. People are not shaming people who have diabetes and they have to use insulin or metformin, for example.
Right.
So Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, who you just mentioned, he also made a very great, very clear, very kind of obvious post, but it's kind of like you started to think like, why haven't I thought about this before? Because it's so obvious, and he said, sure, if you get off GLP-1s, some people will regain the weight.
Right.
But also people who are taking blood pressure medicine, if they go off the blood pressure medicine, their blood pressure is going to go up. It just kind of makes sense, right?
Right.
So I am a big proponent of those drugs specifically because some people absolutely need them. You also made a fantastic connection or analogy with gastric bypass. I had many clients with some sort of gastric bypass surgery. Those clients are still clients who need to lose weight, or they want to figure out a way how they can maintain their results.
Right.
So for us coaches, you just have to be a good coach, good enough to understand that this is not you losing clients.
Right.
This is you potentially losing clients who were never a good fit for coaching. So in a way, you're losing quote unquote bad clients who either can't commit, won't commit, or they don't know how to commit because they just don't get the coaching or they don't derive help from it. But clients who do use and I speak generally, there's clients who do use GLP-1s, they're just going to be clients with a little bit of different set of problems that you need to help them solve. And that's all that it is. So I do absolutely agree with everything that you said. I will also add one more thing, which is seeing some of our colleagues, people from the fitness industry, doing the same work we do, fear-mongering people by over-exaggerating side effects just so they can retain those clients a little bit longer, are scum of the earth. And yeah. I don't want to endorse, I truly, truly believe that. Because ironically, you have a lot of people shaming people who need GLPs, who are on anabolic steroids, against people who need GLP-1s and calling them lazy and taking shortcuts. I mean, this fucking industry of ours is so ridiculous sometimes, With
the other component in there being individuals who, and you could say, you can find the reference in steroids as well, but the other thing is we're seeing people, influencers, if you will, who are already quite lean. They've got their carved up midsections, and they're sharing with you what I eat in a day. They're sharing with you how I train in a day. They are not being transparent about the fact that they're taking a GLP to stay that lean. They're making it seem like you don't work hard enough. And I think that's the other place that we have to look at there is it's like, fortunately, most people can look at two different physiques and say that person is most likely on steroids, that person is most likely natural with some deviation. But I don't know that everybody can tell that someone who is lean didn't get there through a GLP-1. And I think that's where, it's misleading. It's predatory. I honestly think it's kind of vile marketing, but people are out there doing it. And it's like the way that people get misled by, Photoshop tweaks. Like, that person doesn't look like that 365 days out of the year. Yeah.
I sometimes think that our industry is almost like a clinical trial, first-time experiment for everything scummy that you can do as a marketer that you can do as a business owner. You have that, like you said, you have a lot of people that are going to use GLP-1s, they are going to use anabolics or something like that to an extent, just so it's not too obvious, and they're going to promote their transformations as natural, which I think is fucking disgusting. But also, at the same time, the AI video content is becoming so realistic that you literally have people buying custom-made generic bullshit cookie cutter programs from companies that don't even exist and showcasing transformation from people who are not real. And I've seen this happening more and more often, and I'm just scared for people, man. Right now, it's just fitness industry has always been fucking shady. But dude, like, we are not even discussing bullshit supplements anymore. We're discussing whether this person from our industry is real or it's AI. It has come to that place. We're not even shitting against snake oil salesmen and charlatans like the glucose goddess who sells bullshit supplements and products. But I also believe that us coaches who are good coaches who care about people should not be worried at all, because we're gonna serve pretty much like as medics on a battleground after the fight, after the
We'll be there after the carnage.
yeah, just picking up pieces and trying to save the remaining few people. So in what way has your approach to coaching people who use GLP-1s, who need GLP-1s, in what way did it change? So
kind of going back to what I was saying before, it started probably back in 2022, because that's when I was working with Spencer, with the platforms he had at the time. And we were there essentially at the forefront of the medications before they became so huge. And what I've seen happen in the last 4 years is more and more people are taking them. Now, whether or not they're taking pharmaceutical grade or a compounded version is a different conversation and a different avenue to go. But more and more people are starting to take them. For me, it is just about having open, honest conversations about what I've seen happen with them. If somebody is coming right out of the gate and they're saying, I've heard about them, but I kind of have these feelings, I have these reservations, what do you think about this? I can say, look, I've seen XYZ positive things happen, and I've seen XYZ negative things happen. And, this is why you want to be able to stay in tight with your medical professional to make sure that whatever you're doing, whatever you're taking, that it's as safe as possible. And then just, keeping that dialogue open, because we see that person more often than that doctor will see them, more often than not. So it's about trying to keep that conversation open. But also the thing that I'm starting to see is, depending on how people are getting the medications, they may not have a ton of supports. They might not be getting a lot of feedback on how they should be eating, how many meals, how much protein, how much fiber. They only know that it's like, okay, I'm taking the GLP-1, I'm losing weight. That's a plus. I feel better about going into a gym, but I still have all these questions that are unanswered. And so it's just trying to kind of shore up some of those places where it's like there's an opportunity there. So I'm very fortunate for all the experience I had working with Spencer and those particular coaches, but also just realizing that like the medications are only going to get stronger. I only see more people taking them over time, not fewer. So I think the more we can as coaches mentally prepare for that, the easier it's going to be just to kind of be there with open arms and go, I'm here to help. And I'll give you as much knowledge as I can possibly give you if it helps you stay on the path that's appropriate for you.
I think it's also very important to say that we, as coaches, we need more formal education from people like Dr. Spencer. I think we need to update every single curriculum, every single certification provider out there has to include how to navigate through these, through these hard conversations that we have to have with clients. Because right now, for most of us, we are not lucky as you are to be working with Dr. Spencer 5-6 years ago, 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And being able to be the part of that front cohort of coaches who, already were having experience working with people who need GLP-1s. For the rest of us, we need to figure out a way how to skew everything that we do, including our marketing even, towards being very clear what we do for people and how we can help them.
Right.
You also mentioned people who are using them and just going overboard with dosages. We have already just public recordings of abusers of GLP-1s. One thing, like, I'm not mad at abusers. I'm just mad at the marketing ploy that primarily targets abusers when it comes to GLP-1s. And I fucking hate the celebrity game. I don't understand it. I know for, certain countries in this world, it's kind of normal to have celebrities promote certain medications and whatnot. For us Europeans, that doesn't happen too often. But I think when it comes to GLP-1s, never even considering to mention side effects and just promoting it as a fucking panacea, I think that's ridiculous. And I would also say when it comes to dosages, I don't think us coaches should ever prescribe or, even give any sort of ideas what the correct dosages would be, because they are so individualized and so, they need to be communicated with hopefully endocrinologists, if not then a GP.
You're right.
And for me, I had quite a few questions in the last year from clients asking me, should they increase their dosages? I also had clients admitting they're using GLP-1s maybe a month, few weeks after they started because they felt ashamed. So there's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of ignorance around GLP-1s that right now it's still kind of difficult to navigate through. But yeah, man, I go ahead.
You brought up an interesting point. And I want to try to hang on this for just a moment. And it's, prior to the GLP-1s, as coaches, probably one of our biggest struggles was getting people to be transparent about what was happening in their lives. And I'll use a food journal as a good example. You will always have clients that will tell you every single solitary detail of what they put into their body. And you have other clients that for, whatever reasons, maybe they forgot, maybe they underreported, maybe they're embarrassed to share it, that they're not as transparent. And when you don't have that transparency as a coach, it puts you at a disadvantage. I like to make the comparison between what we do versus what an accountant does. Well, an accountant can look at our bank account and they can see down to the cent exactly how much came in, exactly how much went out. We don't have that luxury as coaches. So there's so much room for error that the first place that we have to start is, can I fashion and curate an environment and a relationship with my client that, number one, they feel open and safe enough to share as much of that information as possible, because this then transitions into the GLP-1 conversation that you just talked about. Somebody might start it and go, well, I don't know that I want to share this with Darko, or I don't want to share this with Jason, because what will they think? Like, do they think I'm going to leave them? Do they think that that I'm not strong enough? I don't have enough discipline. I don't have enough willpower. And it's like, for me, and I think I could speak for you in this regard, it's none of those things. I am here with you.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
The one thing that I've felt proud about is throughout the years, going back to 2022, when I started to be more involved in what was happening, I began to write more about it. And as I wrote more about it, I started to have other conversations with coaches who were like, you know what? I was kind of on the fence about this GLP-1 thing, but the way that you wrote about it, now I think I have more space to understand. I don't feel as threatened by them. And it's like, there we go. It's that's the best situation that you can ask out of those things. So I think if we can curate a relationship and a space where people can be open and transparent about what they put into their bodies, that goes for food as it goes for medications, because we want people to feel respected, heard, acknowledged, and seen when we have these very deep, very intense conversations that they might not share with anybody else.
You mentioned one very interesting thing, and I want to piggyback on it, which is, as coaches, we are always faced with the potential issue or the almost guaranteed issue of underreporting. And having tough conversations with clients sometimes can, from a client perspective, means we're calling them out or calling them liars, when in 99% of cases that doesn't happen. It happens for many different reasons, like tracking the wrong way. They don't know exactly whether they tracked cooked or raw ingredients, stuff like that. Maybe they just forget to track and they haphazardly track later on, and maybe they're just kind of rounding the numbers. And what I'm seeing with my clients who use GLP-1s, and I really truly hope that I am going to be the one who coined this term, which is over-reporting. So what's happening is that you have exactly the situation that you just described, where people feel ashamed, or they feel like, how my coach is going to think about this and what they're going to think about me. So they kind of go low key on using something that has absolutely significant effect on their appetite. So in order for them to hide that I had clients, I catch them up in a, like, I'm talking right now, I'm literally talking about lies, you know, but I never, ever make them feel guilty about it because I understand where it's coming from.
Right.
But dude, I had several instances where a client is going to round up 80 grams of chicken breast into like 200 grams. I had clients literally over-reporting specifically the protein intake, their fiber intake, and even when they have like quote-unquote junk food, they would say that they eat an entire double cheeseburger, for example, when in all actuality they ate like a quarter because they couldn't eat no more.
Sure.
And it's a very fascinating phenomenon that I think is pretty goddamn difficult to navigate because I have never encountered it until the last maybe 12 to 16 months. And I'm starting to notice that trend.
Sure.
And I think for me, the only way that I can break through that issue is to be preemptively open about the use and to be preemptively extremely supportive of the use of GLP-1s.
Right.
Now, if someone uses GLP-1 that I subjectively think that they shouldn't, I keep my mouth shut. So if you come to me as a client and you're using gear, you're using anabolics, I don't give a shit. I just want to know what you're using.
Yeah.
How long have you been using?
So
Will
that
you
you have
continue to be
awareness.
using? So that I have awareness and so that I know how to navigate your nutrition and your training and your physical activity and my general advice based on that.
Well, so to this point, I'll give a case scenario, and hopefully this is helpful for anybody who might be on the fence or maybe even currently on a GLP-1. But I had a client, and I'll call this client Chad, okay? And Chad had significant amount of weight to lose, and we got started, and Chad really wasn't losing a whole lot of weight. And Chad heard me talking about GLP-1s and said, "Hey, I'm interested in that. Can you tell me more about it?" Well, yeah, I'm obviously not the one who would be prescribing it. There's no incentives. I get no kickbacks from telling you about it. But if you decide you want to do it, this is an avenue that you can go and then just see what happens. And so they went that avenue. They got started. They went in the process. And during the time, like when they weren't losing weight with me initially prior to the GLP-1, I said, "So tell me what you're eating." And Darko, I'm sure you've been in this situation before. Chad gave me a list of foods, and I'm looking at that list of foods and I'm like, it is not possible. It is not humanly possible that you are not losing weight if that's what you're eating. But this is the conversation in my mind. So I'm asking deeper questions, trying to get to the heart of what's happening, but Chad's not giving me anything more than that. So I'm like, look, I'm just going to step back. And then when the GLP-1 conversation started, I said, listen, Chad had expressed that if he got on the GLP-1, he just wanted it for a kickstart. He did not plan on being on the GLP-1 indefinitely. So he gets started on it and weight's just coming right off his body. And he's like, wow, like this is really working. And I'm like, okay, so here's just something I want you to think about. You may want to journal what you're eating because should you decide to get off the medication, you may need a reference point for what foods were helping you lose weight while you were on the medication. And he's like, okay, cool, no problem. So then he starts losing a little bit more weight. And I said, so now that you're really like kind of getting in a groove with it, what do you think has changed? And Chad said, well, I no longer do this. And he gave me an example of something that I'm like, you've never told me this before. You've never told me that this was one of your obstacles. In all the times that I was asking you what's going on with food, never did this come up. But now that you're on the GLP-1, now you're saying it. This is amazing. And I never, it was not my place to go, why did you lie? That's not my place.
Yeah.
My place is to say, that's amazing. That's amazing. And whatever you're doing is working. Because you know what? That is the single most important thing. You identified what the problem was. You were having success with the medication. I am here to help you with everything else. And I mean, what more could you ask for is just putting somebody in that place where they have the confidence to come out and say, this was it. This was that red flag, that big rock that you were trying to move. Now we're finally moving it. So, yeah.
It's so funny that after, 12 years of coaching, I'm encountering completely new situations, new discussions, new set of problems. So for me, it's also kind of fun, but it's also kind of like sometimes feel like walking on a minefield. And because I always approach those discussions from a place of care and from without any judgment, I think that goes a long way into just having a client open up and discussing something which is, you get a prescription from a doctor as your coach. don't necessarily have to say that I need to know, because at some point I'm going to figure it out anyway. But I would love to know, because the sooner we can prevent certain potential issues, such as muscle loss, such as lethargy, lack of energy, right, the better. The sooner we can start battling potential side effects and possibly even preventing them, at least to a significant effect, the better for a client. So that's kind of how I approach it. Like, straight from the moment when I open the doors, I ask my clients, will they use? Are they currently using? And just support them and encourage them to continue using as long as their doctor is giving them prescriptions.
Right.
So yeah, I really don't think I'm exaggerating when I'm saying that this absolutely changes the landscape of coaching, particularly for us who, sounds douchey, but I'm going to say it anyway, for the lack of better words, specialize in weight loss. And you know my story with morbid obesity, right? So that's kind of what's always close to my heart. And I could never be against use of these drugs, because that would make me a huge hypocrite. Because honestly, Jason, if this came out back in like 2008, 2009, when I was at the peak of my morbid obesity, dude, I would jump right. Like, I would douse myself in GLP-1s. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, you and I were just talking about from a perspective of supporting people who are using it. But I think there are already a lot of cautionary tales, unfortunately, when it comes to GLP-1s. And yeah, did it affect your business in any way? The existence of GLP-1s, I mean.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to answer because, at the same time that GLP-1s are becoming and have been as popular as they have been over the last few years, we also had the rise of AI usage. So you can kind of see a couple things happening at one time. You can see people who, number one, they get on a GLP-1, it costs whatever it costs, and it's more important to them to be able to stay on the medication than it is for them to have a trainer at that point in time. Maybe they can't afford to do both. So, they choose the medication over the coach, and, you let them, give them their wings, let them fly, because they have to make that decision based on budget constraints, that kind of thing. But I think that you've also seen, also in this sort of post-COVID world, the cost of everything's going up by and large. And people are looking for ways to cut back on certain discretionary spending items. And if they can go to ChatGPT and drum up a workout for themselves and they feel good doing it and they can do that in the privacy of their home and it saves them $300 a month, it's hard to say don't do that because they have to determine what's right for them. I have found that if I've lost business specifically for those reasons, I don't know that it was for those reasons. I can only speculate. But I also, I've got the benefit of having had a brick and mortar business long enough that sometimes you just have to weather the storm. There's going to be times when business is up, times when business is down, and you still have to show up every day and do the best damn job that you can because the people who need you still need you. And so it's like, well, we still have a service to provide. So we will be here with the people that are here with us. So yeah.
Yeah. The only thing that changed in my business is, have I seen a drop of number of clients? Yeah, sure. But I've also seen at the same time, I've seen an increase in quality of clients.
100%.
You're going to get just a different type of clients and I also believe that with AI and also with GLP-1s, we have to incorporate them into our coaching and understand that clients currently and in the future are not going to sign up for coaching for 6-12 months. I think we're going to see more and more clients signing up for a month, couple of months, 3 months, 4 months maybe, because they have a particular problem to solve. And once we solve that problem, I always gravitate towards what you said about when you quoted Brianna in the beginning of our conversation, which is give people the tools, learn them, teach them how to use those tools, and just send them off into, a better tomorrow. I truly believe in that, and that aspect of my coaching is never going to change. It's just the types of client are going to change. The goal setting is going to change and is already changing. So I think we're always going to be fine. But I also think we need to adapt our services and our prices and also how we communicate these issues. But I also think, man, like if you let's say you make 3-4 training programs for a client during, let's say, like a 6-month period, you make maybe like 3 full-blown mesocycles. Like, why wouldn't you, at least during your last month working with this client, teach them how to prompt a ChatGPT to just continue with that program? so they can indefinitely use it. I don't see anything wrong with that. And
No, I've never thought about
you know
doing it
what I
that
mean?
way, but it makes sense. Yeah.
My current business is based, or my current service is based around pretty much the closest thing that I could come up with as done for you service. And I don't have a lot of clients that I can work with at the same time because it's a very time consuming service. But I am pretty much on a daily basis in trenches, helping people make all kinds of decisions, but also making a lot of decisions for them. And specifically because of that, like, I don't do meal plans, by the way. I will never do meal plans. But when it comes to giving clients the tools, if I know that the client, this is my last month with the client, our entire coaching, or my entire coaching, shifts towards more autonomy than as it was for like previous several months.
Right.
And that autonomy also includes education on how to continue doing this on their own. Because I would much rather have a client who works for me only for 3 months, a person whose life I impacted positively, right, and who is going to sing praises about my service, rather than finding a way to jam that client into my service for another 3 months just so I can get paid $900 more. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
I'm sorry if I sound sanctimonious or if I sound like a smartass. I just think these conversations are extremely important when it comes to coaching. But I also think these conversations are extremely valuable for people who are looking for coaching, to know what to look for, and coaches who are not willing to adapt in a way that they are going to be extremely supportive with the new technologies and also GLP-1s. When it comes to actual technologies, like, dude, I have people using ChatGPT and using Claude to track their own calories and macros. And instead of me going, no, you have to use MyFitnessPal or whatever, I just encourage them to continue to do so. However, instead of them randomly using it, I would just tell them like, well, you can do that, but instead of doing that the way that you do, maybe add this little prompt into ChatGPT and use Benedict Harris method of calculating your calorie intake.
Sure.
Yeah. Right. So like, it's just a super random fucking example, but
yeah. To go back to something you said previously about the term commitment, if you will, ever since I started this business, the brick and mortar business, it has always been a month by month basis. So, people don't sign up for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. It's month by month. And if you love it, stick with it. And if you need to bow out for any reason, I don't want people to feel contractually bound to stay. I want them to stay because they love it. And with online training, it's a slightly different philosophy, but I'll kind of give both sides of a coin. If you go on my Instagram, there's a place where you can look at services, and it says that if you're signing up for nutrition coaching, that it's with a 3-month minimum. But I'm not a stickler about that. It's a 3-month minimum because for a lot of people, it might take 3 months before you really start to kind of get where you want to go. By the same token, like, I've had clients that come in and they show me their food journal, and I'm like, that one area right there, fix that one area. They fix the one area, they drop a bunch of weight, and a month later, I'm like, I don't think you need to be here.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
you did that one thing. So why pay me X amount of money for the next 2 months just because I had a little blurb up on my Instagram graphic? Just go with God, man. Have fun and just keep doing the thing. And if you need me, the door's open.
Yes.
Like, you can always come back if you get stuck. So
exactly. That's literally the description of my own service and my own pricing as well. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about today, or should we wrap it up?
I think we covered a lot of stuff. Hopefully it opens up the door for other conversations in the future. But, you and I have been connected for a long time, and it's nice to see the people who have continued to stay afloat in the industry, because I think it speaks to the quality of the work that they do, that they can stay in the industry. Because what I think not enough people talk about is that the turnover is quite high. It's not easy to make a living as a coach. So, I think you and I have been connected for probably close to 10 years, maybe longer. And that we can have these conversations in 2026 after that amount of time really says something. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate just being connected with you for all these years.
Thank you very much, man. Likewise. The quality of our conversations is just higher than it was like 10 years ago because of the added experience. Just working with hundreds of people completely changes how you talk, and what you've learned and what you can offer to people, and the lessons that you pick up along the way. So it's nice because you have more experience than I do in the industry. it's nice to finally reach a point where I truly believe that there's something that I can offer as well. And I would absolutely love to have you again on the podcast discussing pretty much anything else that you would like to talk about. And we did not structure this conversation. I hope that was enjoyable for you. I felt like this has been the closest thing to the off-record conversations that you and I occasionally have. So I thank you for that, man. You are absolutely awesome. You know I love you. And can you just tell people watching and listening to this where they can find you if they're interested in your services or your blogs, which I would highly recommend. People, in the day and age of everyone using fucking ChatGPT to write their articles, Jason Leenaarts' writing is off the hook. He writes blogs that are filled with transparency, vulnerability, and just pure education that comes from the trenches. So I would highly recommend people who are not even interested in coaching services to go to Rev Fit website and to check Jason's blogs, which are absolutely tremendous. And they were, for many years, part of my own continuing education as a coach.
Awesome.
So apart from that, where people can find you?
Yeah, I'd say just look up my name. If you can spell the last name, you're going to find me. So if you want to be my friend on Facebook, be my friend. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's all public. But yeah, jasonleenaarts.com is probably the place to start. And if you're inquiring about services, you can find that stuff on Instagram. I'm pretty easy to reach. So yeah, Leenaarts. And if you can spell that, that's going to get you pretty close to me.
Have you ever thought about substituting that second E into A and just go full pun with your branding? Because Leenaarts is actually a real goddamn name. It's not made up.
No, yeah, it's real. The funny thing is that I never really thought about it when I got into the industry because, so many people struggle to pronounce it. But when I went to go make a group on Facebook, it's 2 words instead of 1, lean, Lean, and then arts. And it's there. But I was like, wow, that's awfully convenient.
Jason, love you, man. Thank you for coming.
Love you too. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cheers.